What's up, everyone? We're back for another episode of Locked On Bucks, and today we're talking about potential trade targets for the Bucks. We've been talking a lot about what the Bucks could do with pick 24. Are there any realistic targets that could help the Bucks win now? Playoff versatility, all the things that have been talking points since the Bucks were bundled out of the playoffs. So we've got a bunch of names here. Frank's done the work like he always does, so now we can get straight into it.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Bucks. I'm your host, Kane Pittman. You can see and hear me on this show Monday to Friday, and also find my other stuff over at ESPN alongside me, the founder of brewhoop.com and longtime voice of the podcast, Frank Madden. Of course, we always thank you for making Locked On Bucks your first listen or first watch of every day, and today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. That's BetOnline, where the game starts. If you missed the previous podcast, we spoke about free agents and potential names that the Bucks could be looking at. There's a list of guys there, so make sure if you missed that, go back and listen to this podcast. But today, Frank, we're talking about guys the Bucks could potentially trade for. Now, not all these trades involve the first-round pick this year. There's some different combinations here, and I've mentioned it before, but Frank has this cap sheet on his Twitter. You can find a link there at FMaddenNBA, and one of the tabs down the bottom has 2022 targets, bunch of names, and Frank's just put in some, let's call it sample offers for what could be on the table here, Frank. So how do you want to go about this? Where do you want to start in terms of players? I know personally that I've got three standout targets from your list, but where do you want to start? Do you want to start from the top of the list, or do you want to start from the number one guy that intrigues you?
Well, I'll just read them all off so that because we could probably spend 2 hours talking about each guy.
That's right.
And I'll frame this as well. I mean, we can get into some of like the kind of sample offers, and we were messaging with our friend Eric Name about this, and I kind of basically was like, I don't know that I love any of these quote unquote sample offers enough from either the Bucks perspective or the other team's perspective. It's really just like, what is what's a not unreasonable offer that could potentially get this deal done if both teams like really were interested in kind of the players coming back from either side. So it's more just like a way to kind of litmus test like our own view of like, hey, you might like this guy, but like, yeah, to make the salaries match and probably to incentivize the other team, like this is probably the offer. And for a lot of these, it's like, ugh, like I don't want to give up I don't give up a first round pick for that guy. I mean, I like that guy, but I don't want to give a first round pick for him. So it's that's the way I would interpret it. It's not interpreted as this is what Frank is willing to definitely give up for that player. Because honestly, like most of these guys, are kind of like, I don't know. Again, I look at them kind of like, take it or leave it, So again, I think that a couple kind of important lenses to apply. If you listen to the previous pod where we talked about the potential free agent targets, again, a lot of those guys might get getting paid more than the Bucks can offer with the tax pyramid level. So, how many of those guys are really even realistic targets? TBD. But the upside is those guys don't require you to ship out any assets to get them, right? So, I would say most of those guys maybe are less appealing than these trade targets, but that's for a reason. It's because you can go get them and not have to give up a first round pick or Grayson Allen to actually bring him into the fold. So let me read off kind of the grouping. And again, archetypes you're going to see here are very consistent. I did not target any point guards. I did think actually recently when there was talking about the Nuggets shopping Monte Morris, I was like, Monte Morris, he's pretty good. Like, would you give up Grayson Allen for him? Would the Nuggets be interested in Grayson Allen for Monte Morris? I'm not going to rule anything like that out. But again, I was looking at this mainly through the lens of the Bucks need more wing depth, and they need somebody that they can put out there, potentially like a combo forward type. Again, the PJ Tucker, the Ersatz PJ Tucker type guy, and who that might be, right? Which again, presumably different players. But those there's some different types of players, kind of again between like the 2 and the 4 spot. and everything in between that could be of interest, or at least that would be my area of focus. So let me read off the guys. And for the most part, I think these guys are all the trade targets are all expiring contracts, right? Which again, not coincidental, because I think that makes them more likely to be traded because they could be gone in a year. Some of them have kind of funky things, which I'll mention here. But anyway, so the list is Royce O'Neill from the Jazz. Again, 3-and-D wing, the only 3-and-D wing that the Jazz seem to have. So I don't know if that's something that they're going to want to necessarily give up. Josh Hart, who's got kind of like a funky non-guarantee, who again I think Portland will want to keep, but again, would they trade him under certain circumstances? Maybe. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope from the Wizards, 1-year deal. I think he's making $13-14 million. Kelly Oubre from the Charlotte Hornets. Dean Maniat's favorite player because he's handsome. Kelly Oubre's handsome, not Dean Maniat. He's making $12 million. Good clarification. Important. Our good friend Dean Maniat at all the Bucks. It's not a Bucks trade season without some nepotism. So Justin Holiday from the Kings owed about $6 million. Drew's brother, of course, older brother. That's kind of sneaky. Like I found that out like maybe a couple years ago, but for some reason in my head, I always just assumed Justin Holiday was the younger brother of Drew because I only found out about. I only remember hearing about him like 6 or 7 years ago.
I also can't keep track of where these guys play. Where the hell is Aaron Holiday playing? Where did he end up?
He ended up on the Suns. Wait, did he end up on the Suns?
Oh, I think that's right. Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah,
he got traded. I think at the end of the season. Yeah. Anyway,
there's too many of them.
Too many. Never enough holidays.
Okay, true.
Kenrich Williams, terrible haircut. He's got the old duckbill thing on the back of his head, but very interesting defensive player, slumming in OKC. Very low priced as well. So in terms of trade targets, you actually couldn't trade Grayson Allen for him because Grayson Allen makes too much money. Ironically, you have to put something else in it from the OKC side. So very interesting player, has not a great 3-point shooter, but has had maybe some more moments the past couple of years. A guy that I never liked when he was in LA because I feel like he thought he was better than he was, but an interesting player, Kyle Kuzma from the Wizards now. I believe also about $13 million, $14 million, something like that. Harrison Barnes expiring $18 million. So he's very expensive. You have to really aggregate a bunch of salary just to be able to bring him in. Jay Crowder, again, I think he's about $9 million expiring. Is he really on the market? Are the Suns really looking to trade Jay Crowder? I don't know. Larry Nance, I believe he's at around $10 million, also expiring salary down in New Orleans. It's funny. I always think of him as like a combo big, like an undersized 4'5", but he's only 6'7". He's only 6'7". He's kind of a long arms guy. I don't think he's a small forward. I think he's probably more of a 4-man, but I think there's definitely worlds where you could certainly see him playing with Giannis in kind of small ball configurations and kind of being an interesting guy defensively. Can occasionally hit an open three as well. Eric Name's favorite target, PJ Washington. Kind of combo big man. He's only 6'7", but long arms, can hit threes. Not a great defender, but maybe serviceable. But kind of like a 4-man who can, again, probably play in small ball lineups in kind of that Giannis configuration. And he's coming off his rookie deal, so he would be kind of like a guy you would need to extend in a year, right? Or this summer if you acquired him. Kind of like a Grayson Allen type situation last year. And then the last guy who I hated putting on here because he's a guy that I have notoriously thought was overrated, but maybe if you stare at him long enough, I don't want to encourage people to think this guy's good, but his value is not very high right now. Cam Reddish, currently slumming in New York, who gave up, I think, a first-round pick for him, I believe, and then pretty much like didn't play him. But an interesting player defensively. I thought he actually had some good moments when he came back in the East Finals 2 years ago, defending Chris, and kind of he has defensive tools. He had kind of that random like a heater game.
8 threes or whatever.
just bizarre because he's not historically been a great 3-point shooter, and he's a shockingly bad 2-point shooter, which has always been an issue for him, even going back to like EYBL in high school and at Duke. He just couldn't make 2-point shots, and I think that always sort of was a sneaky red flag for him. But very good free throw shooter, has some upside, I think, as a 3-point guy, maybe a little too irrationally confident, but again, athletic. Not going to be like a 4-man, but again, kind of 2-3, good size for that position. So that is the group that we had that I've kind of highlighted. Tell me who jumps out at you, and then maybe we can talk a little bit about what deals for those guys might look like. And again, I generally, as I was constructing these, I was really just focused on, you've got Grayson Allen at $9 million, you've got George Hill at $4 million, you've got like Luka Vildoza and Ray-John Tucker as kind of like minimum salaries that you could use as filler. And then you've got essentially this year's first round pick, which again, technically can't be traded until after the draft. Grayson Allen technically can't be traded in most scenarios until July, because his new contract doesn't kick in until then. But again, like every year, you can agree to these things, make the pick on behalf of the other team, and then not officially consummate the trade until July. So, and then second round picks, right? The Bucks do have some second round picks. So where was your head at, Kane? What jumped out at you? Any of those guys interest you? And then we can quickly beat down that interest by talking about what it would take to get them.
Yeah, so there's a couple of names there that I did like, and it's a good point you made about the draft pick. There's always someone in the YouTube comments that goes, they can't actually trade the pick. And it's like, well, don't you remember when RJ Hampton put on a Bucks hat on draft night for about 2 seconds? And I think it was his dad that like tossed it over the other side of the room. So yeah, I mean, it would be some sort of organized deal there. All right, I got 3 guys. Before I do that, True Bill, I have to talk about, do you know why free trials renew without your consent? It's a business scam. That's what it is. And it's out to get your money. Don't let greedy corporations pocket your money. Download Truebill to take control of your subscriptions. Truebill is a new app that helps you identify and stop paying for subscriptions you don't need, want, or simply forgot about. On average, they say people save up to $720 per year with Truebill. You can do a fair bit with Truebill. You get a 6-pack of beer at Fiserv, which is like fantastic. So because companies make subscriptions hard to cancel, Truebill makes it incredibly simple. Just link your accounts and Truebill will cancel your unwanted subscriptions in one tap. Truebill has over 2 million users and has helped them save over $100 million. So don't fall for subscription scams. Start canceling today at truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. That's truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. It could save you thousands of bucks a year. While we're talking about draft picks, don't forget the Ultimate NBA Mock Draft has started on June 16, I should say. So it's already underway. All the experts across the network use the term loosely with me, but we've all made selections in our Locked On draft. So as I said, the first pick was June 16th. So you get a couple episodes to look into there. Don't miss a pick. After you're done with Locked On Bucks, go listen to the Ultimate NBA Mock Draft. All right, one thing that stood out to me with this list, Frank, because this always comes into account. I'm like, is there any players on this list that Giannis hates? So because you can scrub them off the list. So yeah, Jay Crowder I think is borderline. I'm not sure if the Suns want to get rid of him anyway, but Jay Crowder I kind of scrubbed off my list. Another guy that I think the people have forgotten about this, PJ Washington. Don't you remember when PJ Washington kicked or tripped Giannis and Giannis turned around and gave him the finger point like a disappointed dad with a child that has just made a silly act at the playground? I didn't forget about that. And Giannis hasn't forgotten about that either.
I had forgotten about that. We're going to have to tell Eric Name about that because, Eric might not be getting any more Giannis interviews if he pushes this PJ Washington agenda too hard.
Giannis has done it a few times, and when he points the finger at you, you know he's extremely disappointed. So PJ Washington, I'm skeptical. So 3 guys for me, and the first one that stood out was Josh Hart. Also, it would be just nice to add a guy that's like 27, 28. It's got a few years left in the tank. Again, I think you're right. I think Portland probably wants to keep him. But the thing I like about Josh Hart, he's a little bit smaller than typically the guy you would say would play the 4 or the 5 in these Giannis lineups. But he is an excellent excellent rebounder for his position. He's had some monster rebounding games over the last couple of years, particularly when he was in New Orleans. He was playing more of the 4 at New Orleans. Then he went to Portland and he was actually playing more of the guard positions, but he is pretty versatile positionally. And he finished really well at the rim. Across his time with the Pelicans or Portland last year, he was around 69-70% at the rim, 69%, which is nice. He was 50% from the corners and then 36% on non-corner threes as well. So he shot the ball pretty well, and his stats just look really good. Now, he wouldn't be playing that role with the Bucks, but he does strike me as a guy that you would have confidence playing throughout the season and probably in the playoffs. And again, it's that position, as you said, that the Bucks are they're in trouble if they have any injuries, as we found out. Harrison Barnes was the other guy. We've spoken about Harrison Barnes a few times over the years in terms of a guy you could target. I think the financial stuff, as you pointed to, makes it difficult. Just and I know why you did this and you pointed it out at the start, but in the sample offer, poor old Luka Vildoza. And I would recommend, if the Bucks want to put Vildoza in a trade package, they need to send that 3-minute burst against the Chicago Bulls, and any team will be happy to take Luka Vildoza. So I don't know whether Harrison Barnes is gettable, but he's been in Sacramento just off the radar, and he's just put together some really solid seasons. And I think I would like to see him on a good team. Another guy that I don't know how good he really is, because he's literally never played on a good team, Larry Nance. By the way, Cleaning the Glass has him at 6'9", so he'll be disappointed.
Oh.
But
Apologies.
I googled him.
Apologies.
But I googled him and it says 6'7". So there's a bit of a discrepancy there as well. But he is smaller than you think. He doesn't shoot a lot of threes, as you said. But yeah, he is definitely a guy that you could probably play alongside Giannis. He's always the guy that when you listen to different podcasts and people that cover Larry Nance, they're like, why aren't they maximizing Larry Nance? Why can't they get the best out of Larry Nance? It's always the conversation that comes up. And I just don't know whether he's just been on bad teams. What would he be like on a good team? I don't know. But he does, again, strike me as a guy that you could play in the playoffs. And if you had Brook, he'd come off the bench. But brings that versatility that is kind of interesting. So they're the 3 guys that stood out for me.
Yeah, and I think as far as like sample deals, like what does it take to get those guys? Josh Hart, again, I think just to make salary matching, you have to certainly put in Grayson Allen. I'd have to double check. You may need to put in like Vildoza or Hill as well. But I would have to think Portland would want a first round pick, even though like statistically it's not like Josh Hart is miles ahead of like Grayson Allen from like a regular season perspective. As you said, I just think his physicality and his defense, I think, just projects better into a playoff series. Again, Josh Hart's not like a really big guy, but I mean, I really liked him going back to college. Like he just was one of those guys that just seemed like got punished for being an upperclassman. I mean, it felt like he did kind of everything he could do. The 3-point shooting, I mean, he's a career sub 35% guy, ended up shooting, I think, on the full year last year in the 34% range as well. So, I mean, definitely not like a lights out shooter by any stretch, but he has more to his game than just that. I mean, he averaged 19.9 points a game, 4 assists a game in Portland, which again, like weird situation because while he was there, obviously they didn't have Dame and it was just a 13 game short sample size. But he was good in New Orleans for the most part the previous couple of years. And again, just a guy that I can see putting out there at the end of playoff games. And it's not like he necessarily has to play the 4, but you think of it in the context of Giannis plus Chris plus Drew plus Josh Hart plus whoever, right? Wes Matthews or whoever it might be, right? Or obviously Brook if you're playing kind of big. But yeah, Josh Hart I find very interesting. But again, I think you're gonna have to put Grayson Allen, more salary, and a first round pick into that deal. And again, is that too rich for kind of the Bucks blood? Maybe, but I would definitely be more excited about having Josh Hart than Grayson Allen. And
yeah,
we all know what first round picks typically end up providing, and certainly as rookies and second year players, it ends up being very little. And Bucks obviously also don't have exactly a track record of really hitting home runs. So I think you'd have to at least think about it, right? If you could do it for, multiple second round picks instead of this year's first, that would be nice. And just as a reminder, so the Bucks, in terms of second round picks, they forfeited this year's pick because of the it's so stupid. But I mean, the Bogdanovich thing, forfeiting the second round pick, just mind-blowingly stupid. But anyway, and again, probably not, there's some stupidity by kind of all around on it, but like the NBA, like WTF, like, Lonzo Ball actually signs with the Bulls and they, only get, they have the same punishment or whatever. Like, anyway, but they do have a 2023 second coming from the less favorable of Cleveland or Golden State. So that's probably not a great first round pick. And then they actually then have a 2024 coming in from Portland, which Portland's going to be really interesting to watch because it just feels like they're kind of on the edge of a full rebuild. And then 2025 second round pick coming in from Indiana, which who knows where Indiana will be. They've been kind of, just like in the middle forever, but they seem to be pivoting towards a rebuild finally. So anyway, so those are the kind of the incoming second round picks. And then they do have the Bucks 2025 second round is going out, and their 2026 second round is going out as well. So, they have, I think they're on net, they are +1 second rounder, or no, if you include this one's forfeited one, they're basically even in terms of second rounders. Basically they're at parity for what, typically have like on average one a year over the next few years. So anyway, it kind of that's kind of what they're looking at. So yeah, I think Josh Hart's the most interesting guy. I will say this too. So Harrison Barnes, I agree, very interesting. If I could plug Harrison Barnes into this team, I'd find that very exciting. That said, I mean, Harrison Barnes is making $18 million a year. He started essentially like every game other than like parts of his second year when he was in Golden State. Granted, he was playing small forward for the Kings, perhaps not his best position in the modern game. Perhaps he's really more of a 4 at this point. But he's an expiring contract. You're not trading a bunch of stuff for him. And I assume you'd have to put a first round pick into a deal for him. I don't think you're going to trade for Harrison Barnes, and then especially for a Kings team that seemingly they want to win games. So you're gonna have to give them stuff to do that. So I don't know that a first round pick moves them a whole lot. They could have gotten probably something similar last year at the deadline and they didn't do it. So you're gonna have to pay a ton of money. You're gonna have to send a bunch of money out. And then if you're bringing back Bobby and Pat, it just seems like there's a lot of like, he plays basically the position. He's basically best suited to playing the positions that your two best players or two highest paid players and Chris and Giannis play, right? So are you going to move Chris to the 2 and put Harrison Barnes at the 3 to start him so that he'll actually want to stick around? Because I don't think he's like thinking, oh, I'll sign for $10 million when this contract is done. I'm sure he's 30 years old. I'm sure he's like, I want another $20 million a year contract, right? Which again is like, that's a lot of money for a Bucks team given what they are with the tax. So I feel like the fit to add a guy who's like probably needs to start because that's what his expectation is, and is going to get paid a ton of money when he's like a 3-4 and you have Chris and Giannis as your 3-4 starters. I think that's kind of a tougher fit to make work for the Bucks. It just doesn't feel like probably something they would do, especially if they bring back Bobby. There's no 4 minutes, right? There's no 5 minutes. There's backup 3 minutes and there's shooting guard minutes. So again, like, are you pushing Chris Middleton to the 2? Like, I don't know. It's just kind of an awkward construction question and kind of roster fit for me because I like him a lot, right? You plug him into the Bucks playoff roster, like awesome, right? If he's like making $8 million a year and he's coming off the bench, sweet. But I think it's just that one to me is just kind of a harder one to kind of rationalize just where the Bucks are in terms of the roster. And then as far as was Larry Nance your third guy? Right?
Yeah, before you get to Nance, let me talk about Bet Online. And by the way, there's one other thing that I've noticed on your list that I have to bring up. So do not let me forget it. It's a very, for one member of the current Bucks roster, it would be very, very unfortunate and a tough pill to swallow. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but I noticed it when you were
Oh,
talking about it. We'll get to it. BetOnline.net is the number one source for all your betting stats and sports info. Got the odds here for the 2023 championship, by the way, which I guess now we're looking forward to the Bucks winning the title again. Milwaukee are 8-1, so they are the, what do we got here? 1, 2, 3, 4. They're the equal fourth favorite with the Clippers. You got the Nets. Surprising, the Nets are the third favorite, but people like putting money on the Nets, Durant, all that stuff. But that's an interesting, that seems like Bet Online just covering themselves a little bit there. But the Nets are 7-1. Dallas Mavericks traded for our old friend Christian Wood. They're 10-1 for next year's title. So it's interesting. The Lakers all the way down there at 20-1. If you have any interest there, but you can find all the odds.
You keep pushing the Lakers, man. What are you, man? You really want people to put some money on the Lakers, huh?
I am all on the ham sandwich train. Come on,
that's true.
Dom.
That's true. We kind of, I feel like we kind of need to root for the Lakers a little bit.
But now Steph's got 4 titles. LeBron's got 4. So I kind of also just want Steph to get above LeBron. Like, if the Bucks aren't going to win the title, Steph, you may as well just go grab 5 in 2023. But anyway, find all the odds, the NFL futures, Stanley Cup playoffs. It's all there at betonline.net. That's BetOnline, where the game starts. Larry Nance, thoughts?
I mean, he's interesting. I like him. If you could just offer me Larry Nance, I'd take him. But then I think we also get into the question of just, and again, I don't know if this says something about Bobby Portis and how valuable it actually is to bring him back, but I mean, where is Larry Nance going to play if you bring back Bobby Portis and you have Giannis and you have Brook Lopez, if those guys are all healthy? I just don't think there's enough minutes probably for Larry Nance if he's getting paid, $10 million a year. That's a ton of money, right? And again, are there ways that you can lean into just playing bigger? Maybe, right? Obviously, it worked in the Chicago series, right, where they, had Giannis as the jumbo 3-man. But given that Nance is not like, it's not like he's some like dynamic ball handler at his size or something like that. He's really kind of more of a kind of screen setting garbage man who can occasionally, hit an open 3. So I like Larry Nance a lot. If we knew that Bobby was leaving, I think Larry Nance becomes a lot more interesting. I had kind of the representative trade for him. Maybe you can get away with just doing like Grayson Allen in a second round pick. Maybe. We'll see. Maybe you could get away giving up a little less, but I think certainly in previous years, Larry Nance was the kind of guy that, was like worth a first round pick. So yeah, I don't know. I think just the positional question is maybe a little bit challenging there. And I think again, if you're looking for kind of that like small ball bench defender, I think Kenrich Williams is probably like an easier guy to talk yourself into because you're paying him way less money. And again, are you giving up, paying a paltry sum to get Kenrich Williams? I don't know, right? I mean, OKC is in such a weird spot because it's like, at some point, do they stop trying to acquire draft picks? Probably, right? I mean, they just traded this year's draft pick for basically a future pick, with Denver essentially punting, one of these picks has got so many of them. So, offering a second round pick and George Hill to send him back to OKC, what does that do for the Oklahoma City Thunder? I don't know that it does a whole lot. They might say we want a first round pick on general principle. But again, part of it just comes down to like, what do they want, right? Like what would they want for kind of a glue guy defender type like Kenrich Williams? So yeah, it's he's a guy I just find very interesting as sort of like an under the radar target and a cheaper target. But again, at the end of the day, I mean, you need a team that's willing to deal to do it. So I just don't know if that's a match made in heaven. And do you want to give up a first round pick for Kenrich Williams? I'm sure casual Bucks fans would hate that.
Yeah.
But honestly, I would certainly expect that Kenrich Williams can give you more value next year than anybody that the Bucks are going to draft in the first round. But then the problem is you're going to have to sign Kenrich Williams, probably give him a raise, and obviously the first round pick could be more, right? Obviously, you always hope that maybe you strike a rich. Maybe that's your next Malcolm Brogdon pick.
Yeah, he's not a great shooter, but he is definitely a versatile defender. And yeah, you probably, depending on what the Bucks do with the draft pick, if they decided to pick someone, we're thinking it would be a guy that has some defensive chops anyway, which Kenrich Williams obviously does. And again, maybe the Thunder weren't the most watched team by random NBA fans this year, which would make sense. I certainly watched a lot of them because of the great man Josh Giddey. But hey, maybe that wasn't everyone's cup of tea. So, but by the way, this is the trade. If you're George Hill, could you imagine? He would be filthy. He would be fuming if he got the call, pack your bags, you're going to Oklahoma City. I think he would. I don't know what he would do, but it would be scary because.
I mean, part of me was just like, well, he'd probably just go back to his ranch here in the hill country of Texas and just be like, keep my $4 million. I'm just going to hang out here. But I don't know, by the same token, it's like maybe, George Hill's kind of country. Like of all the like random dudes who might have to, hang out in Oklahoma City, I guess you could make the argument that maybe George Hill wouldn't hate that as much as some people, but not exactly an easy commute from like the San Antonio area up to OKC. But yeah, I don't know that any veterans are clamoring to be dealt to the Oklahoma City Thunder, at least not yet. Again, potentially bright future, but we'll have to see. It might take a little while to get to that brightness.
Well, Al Horford just sat at home and cashed checks, and he seemed to look refreshed and revitalized, certainly on stretches. He looked like he might have ran out of gas, but he had a fine game 6 at the NBA.
He hit
finals.
A bunch of threes, man. Yeah. It was like, was it game 4 or game 6 that he hit all those threes, or was it both? Game 4, he had a ton of threes, right? That was his against the Bucks. That was like the flashback game that he was
game 1 in the finals as well. I think he was 6 for 9 from 3 or something like that. So he definitely had some moments. He still is not a good.
He was either trash. He was either like complete garbage offensively, or like, friggin' Dirk Nowitzki. It seemed like.
But by the way, we should say he is the type of versatile guy the Bucks would love. They could do a bit of
Al Horford things. For sure. Yeah.
He can't taunt though. The one thing we learned this postseason, like some people are natural taunters, and they look, it's like Steph Curry, for instance. And the thing I loved about the Warriors in these playoffs is they really turned into full villain mode. And when they were on the road, Draymond didn't have a great series, finished off really well, but he was giving it to the crowd. Klay Thompson was just talking shit the whole time. Steph Curry was out there. And when they're taunting, you're like, oh my goodness, if you're an opposition fan. When Al Horford's flexing, and it's just like, it's not really. It's I don't know. It doesn't really suit him. He's just the quiet guy. Anyway, check out the Locked On NBA podcast. They'll wrap up the NBA finals and lead in to the NBA draft this week as well. So it's only a week away. Before we wrap it up, Frank, any final thoughts you need to get off your chest?
I mean, I don't dislike KD, but kind of a weird got to be a weird feeling for Kevin Durant right about now, right? You just got wiped by the Celtics, trying to build your own super team, and then now you're seeing your former team, the team that you led to 2 championships. They're like, okay, you're incredible, but we're just gonna go back to winning championships without you. It's got to be a little sobering. Not a.
I think that's right.
I mean, maybe it hasn't been like a great couple months for the Kevin Durant brand, I gotta say.
I think that's right. I really like him though.
I do too. I generally like him too. Yeah. I will say that it felt like these playoffs really flew by. Maybe that's because the Bucks weren't in them as long. but man, last year just felt like a fucking marathon. And it was so exhausting, probably because it was such a roller coaster. But this year, I don't know, it felt like it actually went by much more quickly. Again, probably because I wasn't particularly vested in the in the last 2 rounds. But Celtics, man, 7 games and 6 games. I mean, they definitely, these were not short series.
Well, the good news is, Frank, 20-ish days, 21 days until Summer League hoops and the post-game pods are back. Maybe there'll be a draftee. Maybe there won't be. Who knows? There's a bunch of Aussies coming over. So I'm really, really hoping the Bucks have an Aussie on their Summer League roster like Jock Landale.
Jock Landale.
He's had some big games now with the Spurs. So there's a bunch of guys coming over. That would be fun for me. We'll see. Summer League.
What I know your hopes of coming over for the draft, you ended up not doing that. What are we looking at here, Kane? I haven't asked you about this privately, but where are we at with, a potential summer of Kane in the United States? I mean, hopefully Milwaukee, but is there any chance that we're going to see Kane Pittman stateside this summer?
There's still some stuff being floated around about potentially July, potentially early August. I might just head straight from the airport to Summerfest. Where is that this year? It must be late July, I guess, Summerfest. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe late July. There's some basketball stuff going on.
I was gonna say where it's always in the same. The where is always the same, but you were saying because obviously it's moved around date wise.
Yeah.
I don't even know offhand. They're not doing it. I guess they're not doing it over kind of the usual end of June, beginning of July anymore. People are probably like shaking their heads that we don't know this, but obviously neither of us is in. Let's see, Summerfest 2022. This is good radio, by the way, that we're doing. June 23rd through July 9th. So it's back to kind of a more normal schedule.
Well,
so
update. I'm gonna miss Summerfest. I'm gonna have to come up with something else. But yeah, who knows? Maybe July, maybe August. Part of
maybe
me,
a little Festa Italiana, a little German fest.
Oh, that's right. It's a great time. It is a truly great time in Milwaukee. Although I will say, it sounds like they had some rough weather. There's the tornadoes rolling through last night.
Yeah.
Hopefully everyone's fine. Hopefully no damage to houses and those types of things. So it's not something I've had to experience in my lifetime. That's for damn sure.
Kane, my wife was actually floating the idea of coming going to Wisconsin in October.
I thought you were about to say Australia. I was going to say live pod in Australia. There'll be 2 people there. It'll be huge.
No. October,
by the way, can I just quickly say, I was
before the NBA season. That could be fun.
That would be fun. I was on a walk a few weeks ago now. I think I told you this. And I was walking around and so I was listening to a podcast. I don't know what I was listening to. And this man was like, "Are you Kane Pittman?" And I was like, "Oh boy, here we go. What did I do?" and the guy was like, "Kane Pittman?" I said, "Yes." And he's like, "I love Locked On Bucks." I was like, "It's incredible." I'm like, "What an experience in Melbourne, just walking the streets of Melbourne." Unfortunately, I can't remember this man's name, and I'm sure he's not listening at this point in the podcast. Like,
you punched him in the face because you thought it was going to be a negative thing. And, okay.
Well, he said to say hello to you. And anyway, he works for Cisco, I guess. And so he'd had recent trips over to Fiserv Forum because they power some of the stuff there at Fiserv. So anyway, big Bucks fan in Melbourne randomly stopping me, Locked On Bucks. Incredible stuff. So that was fun.
Yeah, I mean, you're a TV personality in Australia, so like it's funny that you would be recognized for this in Australia. But shout out to our Australian friends out there. That's pretty cool. My wife works with people in Australia, and she's now had 2 people who are NBA fans that she works with. So she's had to like explain my whole thing with this. And so like they're now like aware of my weird basketball thing. So yeah, I mean, you just basketball fans are everywhere. I actually was on a client call today, and a guy that is, we were doing this readout for this executive at our client, a guy who's I don't know how much this guy's worth. He's worth an absolute ton. Really smart guy. Been at a very, I won't say which company is that, but a very successful tech company in the Bay Area. And they were, the other client I have, he's based in Indianapolis, and they were talking about Zach Edey, the Purdue big man who's really good. And I heard a comp recently for Boban Marjanovic for Zach Edey, because they're both just like enormous, like 7'3", 7'4", super efficient. And this executive guy, he was just like, well, you know, he compared him to Boban, and I was like, hey, that is exactly the right comp. And he has no idea that I do this. And it was not the time to go into that because we were about to like do this whole presentation. But I was just like, okay, you're in, you know, and I think he's a big Warriors fan. So anyway, you just never know. You just never know where sort of the, you know, basketball conversation might spring up, and it might be able to drop a Boban reference. So yeah, we shared a Boban moment there. But anyway, this has gone on too long, Kane. It's after midnight. We're recording this on Friday or Thursday. It's after midnight now, Central Time. I gotta go to bed. I gotta take my kid to preschool in the morning. But this has been fun, and the draft is drawing close. So yeah, we'll see if the Bucks actually make a pick.
Yes, it's 3 p.m. Friday afternoon where I am, which means that by the time I edit these couple of podcasts we've recorded tonight, it's probably beer o'clock. So that's my plans for the rest of the day. Frank, you get some sleep. We will be back next week. I know I've been saying we're going to have a draft expert on, but we will have a draft expert next week, a few days before the draft, just to get everyone set. Dave Kane had some work stuff this morning, had to hold that off, but he'll be on next week as well. So a few guests lined up to get us right through to the draft, and then we'll get into it. So for myself, for Frank, have a lovely weekend. We'll speak to you guys next week.